Erin, hey, how's it going?
Hello, Beth. Lovely to see you, my dear.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Um, I thought today it would be fun to talk about images that look bad.
Ooh. Oh, that's an interesting take. Because usually
Mhm.
we're all about the pretty pictures. Okay, what do
Yeah,
you got for me?
I love when the pictures are pretty. The fact of the matter is just like sometimes the pictures are not pretty or just like you don't understand what they look like at all. And so I wanted to talk about what are some of the cases we've come across the most where people are like, why does the picture look like that? And actually explain why the picture looks like that.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okie dokie. Um, so here's the most common one. And it's so common that in fact I wrote a blog post back when I was a postdoc about coming across this. You have your pictures, they come off the microscope, you go to look at them in your computer, and they are black.
Ah,
Or sometimes you run them through ImageJ or CellProfiler or some other image analysis software and get your output, and it is black.
ah.
I know, right? Like the initial feeling is like panic, like what happened? What went wrong? And thankfully this one is usually a really simple one. Um, so images are encoded in possibly two different ways. They're either 8 bits, so the values are between 0 and 255, so 256 total values, which means they're stored in 2 to the 8 pieces of information, or they're 16-bit. So they're encoded in 65,000 and change pieces of information. Um, and so sometimes you will have noticed this when you're taking pictures on your microscope and you see like what your histogram values are. They might only go up as high as 250, they might go into the thousands. Um, the major reason why this matters specifically is this is a microscopy specific thing, or at least a scientific imaging specific thing. Most of the time for photography, they only use 8-bit. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's that humans can only see about 300 different light levels. So there's really no value in going more than 8 bits because we can't see the differences. To us, they literally look the same. So most image viewers are designed to support 8-bit images. So here are my horrible looking black images in my computer's system viewer. But if I open them in Fiji,
What?
the
Magic.
information is totally there. It's just there in 16-bit. So usually what happens is your things that's optimized for photography shows you bits 0 to 255 and nothing else. The background here is 300. So if this, were maybe a super, super, super dim 16-bit image, we actually would have maybe been able to see it in our system viewer, but the bits between 0 and 255 are nothing here, and so that is what our computer shows us. So if you see that your images are black in your system viewer, don't worry about it. Try them in FIJI or CellProfiler or something else first. Hopefully, it's just an image bit depth issue.
Great. It's I mean magic.
Mhm.
Looking at it like that, but makes a whole lot of sense that like, there's something
Mhm.
like, fundamentally different about scientific imaging, and your laptop is, the vast majority of people who own computers are not actually working with scientific images, it turns out.
Why?
I mean,
Why
clearly
don't they
that's
enjoy
wrong.
fun?
Like everybody should have a microscope at home.
Yes.
But the that software defaults don't
Mhm.
actually support our use case.
Indeed. Maybe in the future, but
Maybe.
not today.
Yeah.
All right. Um, Weird image case number two. Um, so, um, ideally, when we're talking about fluorescence, what we see is um, bright signal on a dark background. But that's not actually always what we see. I'm gonna adjust the normalization here. Um, Sometimes what we see, if I can show it correctly,
Mm.
is images on a background with a lot of brightness. Let me actually do the next channel even because I think the green channel shows this even better. Yeah, the green channel's good here. Um, uh, so let's now zoom in a tiny bit. So I haven't really sort of pushed this out enough to make it really obviously different, but um, the reason sometimes we might see what looks like our images are in fact super bright because our background looks super bright. And a lot of times people then think, oh, well, maybe this image is saturated. If they see a picture that looks like this and they see all these bright spots, like maybe this image is saturated. Maybe I took my values too high in your microscope. But the key here to sort of notice is that it's not just your signal is bright, your background is bright. Um, and this comes down to normalization. So as I'm hovering my cursor over here, if you look at this sort of bottom right part of CellProfiler's view window, these intensity numbers are super small. Even actually when I'm in the bright part of images, they're super small. Yes, thank you. Beautiful. Um, um, and so I'm going to come back to those 300 gray levels. When we're looking at our computer screens, we're picking essentially which 300 gray levels to show you, or exactly how many gray levels sort of fit into those 300. And so if you see that your image looks like, in fact, it is super bright all over, it's probably not actually that it's super bright. It's probably actually that it's pretty dim. And so the difference between the absolute dimmest pixel in your image, which is probably something close to zero, and the brightest pixel in your image is not that much. So your background actually looks high because it's high, it's close in value if you divide that difference just by 300 than if these were actually thousands apart. So high background actually means dim image, not bright image.
So it, again, like having to do with expectations for our eyeballs
Hmm.
looking at pictures that
Yeah.
this rescaling to make it easy for our brains to see is what is causing
Hmm.
this artificial
Yeah.
brightening.
Hmm. So if you see something where the background is this bright, I mean, it might be that maybe you've super duper duper saturated things, but more often than not, actually what the problem is that your images are actually too dim, or at least they're not, maybe not too dim, but they are dim. And so before you go off and run and change your experimental settings, make sure you're changing the right one, make sure you actually understand what's going on here. Um, And the last one I wanted to talk to also comes down to that idea of normalization, which is, again, just that idea of what are the pixel values that I'm going to use to set between my zero and my dimmest one and my brightest one. Um, so CellProfiler has a module called Overlay Outlines, which allows you to overlay the outlines of
What?
things.
What?
We try to be sensible when we name these things. And often people will do that on top of a color picture. Um, so if I want to say, okay, here's what my things looked like, and then like here are the objects that I got, then This is super helpful. You should basically always do this and save these so that you can look at them real fast when your experiment is done. Because it's really, really sad to have to go to your boss and say, actually, that thing that I just spent thousands of dollars and months of time, like trying to optimize, yeah, it turns out just my segmentation was bad and there was no biology actually there. I've had to be that grad student. It's not a fun meeting.
No,
So
no.
you should,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say we also have we have another Ask Erin, Dear Beth episode that we can drop the link in show notes that is a whole separate pipeline like just for
Hmm.
creating these
Hmm.
overlay images like at scale. So no
Hmm.
matter the size of your data set, you can make sure that you are
Hmm.
actually looking at your segmentations. So we'll drop that in show notes.
Yeah. Um, but sometimes what happens is you go to make your overlay in CellProfiler and you get something that looks like this. And people are like, oh, what happened? Like, here's my image that I'm trying to draw outlines on. Here's this. What the F? This looks terrible. Um, so why does this look terrible? It turns out it once again comes down to this idea of normalization and trying to smush everything into, sort of 300-ish gray levels. So here, the images that I have are super dim. If we look again at that bottom bar, the values are all between like 0 and 0.2. But our outline that we're making is just a value of 1. It's just a, nice bright white circle. So when we have things between where the maximum, and we can actually even just look at the image histogram here, that's probably the best thing to do. So our image histograms here, the absolute brightest pixels here are less than 0.5, 0.05. So 0.02 on a scale of 0 to 0.05 is nice and bright. And so when CellProfiler does its automatic normalization, everything looks great. If we look at the histogram values here, we have all of these pixels that are 1. Um, and so what we see is actually 0.02 is now not halfway bright. It is now 0% bright. And so our thing looks like crap. Um, the other thing that you'll sometimes see is not that just the whole thing looks black, but if I pick something like this, and I'm going to pick a different color here on purpose. Um, So here I have a grayscale image of these dots that then when I do my overlay, now my spots all of a sudden look teal. I mean, teal is lovely, but why do they look teal? They look teal because teal is the opposite of blue and green. Um, our outlines here are super red and not super blue or green. So red is being normalized 0 to 1 and blue and green are being normalized something like 0 to 0.05. So we have what looks like, and when you sort of save this and open an ImageJ, this will just be a gray image with a red circle. But here it looks like blue-green with red, and people then are usually very confused what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it all like again, you have to like thinking in terms of what you see on the screen isn't necessarily
Hmm.
what your data is. Like
Hmm.
it's not, it is a way of representing the numbers that are there, but
Hmm.
again, you just said the difference between what FIJI shows and what CellProfiler shows, like different softwares will choose to show you
Hmm.
different ways of scaling and presenting that data to your eye so that your eye can interpret it, even if the underlying numbers are completely the same.
Yeah, beautifully put. So just to sort of let you know, how do you deal with this?
Oh yeah,
Um,
solutions. That's nice.
yeah, once in a while, yeah. So there are these adjust contrast things in CellProfiler. So if it is showing you in raw and you want to look at normalized or you want to change the brightness, I sort of did this already and sort of didn't really explain to you what I was doing. It's actually even other ways to normalize it, which are helpful sometimes when your images are really, really dim. You can change any of these one at a time, sort of on the fly. If you want your output images to be visible in your computer's viewer, you probably want to sort of make them be 8 rather than 16-bit. Um, for this problem of making these overlays, in fact, the color version of it is actually so common that in the Grade a Color module, we actually have a setting here that we've added that is rescale intensity, yes or no. So what that allows you to do is you can have your things and you can just say, okay, but this is going to be for visualization. Let's just sort of make it rescaled. And so now, instead of my things looking like they're being drawn on top of nothingness, it looks like they're being drawn on top of the image.
Lovely. And totally representative of a thing that you'll hear us say in many of our podcast episodes, right? Where like if it's for visualization purposes, anything goes.
Hmm.
If you're just trying to like see what's happening in your data, scale the heck out of it, do math on it, like whatever you want. But remember, like that is for things you're looking at by eye, and
Hmm.
don't then uh, keep those transformations and make quantitative measurements on them.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else you can think of in terms of what are the weirdest looking images you've seen?
Oh, weird images. I think have encountered more than once the like, hey, what happened to my image? Like, I can't, it's weird and grainy looking, or it's blobby and it wasn't before. And that can definitely happen if you think about any time an image is being saved, opened up and saved again, and somebody has been non-intentional about what they have saved it out as. We can, without deep diving into file formats, because that's a whole other tangent I'm not sure I want to talk about right now. Like there are, file formats that preserve all of your data, and then there are file formats that are meant for that don't preserve as much data, but are optimized for other things like making your file as small as possible. And so if you've accidentally saved in that kind of format, you can lose data. And if this happens repeatedly, like it can, you can lose some every time. And so thinking about like, is this actually my raw image that came off my microscope, or is this something that has been sent to me in an email and therefore might have been compressed in the email, and then I try and download it in an email. And so any anything, any sort of
Or screenshots. It's a
screenshots.
screenshot of,
Oh
mhm.
gosh, screenshots for sure. We end up with that, especially at like helping people on the forum. Because again, like sometimes that's perfectly appropriate. If you have, it's a screenshot of like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Like, can somebody explain what things I might change to, you know, uh, better segment these blobs? But when
Mhm.
it comes down to like, hey, please suggest actual parameters in a real pipeline, then we need the OG data. Like
Yeah.
we can't do, we can give you vibes based on anything by eye, but like again, quantitation,
Mhm.
it needs to be actual OG files. So
Yeah. I think we're going to talk about the forum in a future episode, aren't we?
I think we are.
Yeah.
So
We
stay
should
tuned
make
for
sure to
that.
mention that when we do.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. I had a great time hanging out with you,
Thanks, Beth.
even if the images we were looking at were not so pretty.
I know, I was just gonna say I had more fun looking at ugly images than I thought I would. So thanks for that.
Awesome. See
All
you
right.
later.
Talk to you later.